Spider-Man, Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can. Spins a web, and it's Scott Applier doing a full season review of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Hey everyone, the season finale of Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man just dropped on Disney Plus, and I just finished it, and I want to give my thoughts on the season as a whole now that it's done. And overall, I think once you get past the animation style, this is definitely worth watching for a lot of Spider-Man fans. You get that classic 1960s theme woven into the opening intro sequence of this show, and it hits that nostalgia. It really does. And I think the story here, it's definitely in a way it kind of follows up on a post-credit scene from Spider-Man Homecoming and uses that as like the main villain of the season, which I thought was really interesting with the way they told this story for this one particular villain that was teased in this post-credit scene of Spider-Man Homecoming. And it's rather fascinating. This is not in the MCU continuity. This is in its own continuity. But I think, one criticism that I've seen people have, which is something that I've kind of thought was a bit of a bad thing, but I think over time it kind of just became part of what this show is trying to do. Whereas it's, even though it's within its own continuity, it's still very much borrowing elements from the movies, from the MCU films, and just using that as background for this show, and kind of helps this particular world be, just existing with existing heroes already out there, and that allows for some really cool cameos throughout it. And that's also really fun. I think in that very first episode, you get some really cool cameos there, and then also throughout the season. And there were some that I wasn't expecting. There's some that was definitely very surprised to see in this series. And there's this one particular character who Tombstone, right? He's a character from the comics. We haven't really had Tombstone in live action, really. And the character of Tombstone is technically a villain in the comics, but here in this series, he's this football star in high school, and with where his story goes, I think definitely kind of goes into a direction that I was expecting, but at the same time, they don't make it, it's not cut and clear dry of him just, transitioning to being a bad guy. It's not really like that. And he's still very much a good person, which, kind of lends itself to being something that helps change like a criminal organization for the better by the end of the season, which I thought was really fascinating for his character of Lonnie. And although, certain things happen within his story that kind of feel similar to like other things that I've seen, like Smallville, for instance, but it is a really intriguing series, especially for Peter Parker's story and his origin, which kind of goes back around to from the season finale to the first episode in a very interesting way. I'm not going to spoil it, but it was definitely fascinating, and kind of time-whiny. That's all I'm going to say, but definitely worth it. And also, I gotta give credit where credit is due for Coleman Domingo as Norman Osborn. I wasn't sure how that character was gonna go. I mean, I knew where his character was gonna go, but at the same time, I think throughout most of the season, it just seems like he was generally trying to help Peter, right? And he was like this mentor to him. And there were some really great moments between Norman Osborn and Peter throughout the season, which was definitely worth it in regards to the main villain of the story and that final battle between the main villain and Spider-Man. That main villain is Scorpion. I thought he was definitely quite the threat in the latter half of the season. He was definitely the main villain of the season too, the Scorpion. And he was teased in Spider-Man Homecoming in the post-credits scene, and I thought he was well handled for that character. And then another villain that shows up here is Dr. Octopus, Doc Ock, and he's kind of this background character supplying tech to some other people, and really fascinating because it kind of ties into Norman Osborn's kind of history with Doc Ock, kind of like the Marvel Spider-Man games for the PlayStation consoles. And I thought that was really fascinating too. I'm definitely going to be intrigued into where their stories go, kind of butting heads in seasons 2 and 3 maybe, because this show has been renewed for seasons 2 and 3, so this show ain't going anywhere anytime soon. And I also want to mention that there is this one other character who appears in the finale as well as the very first episode that I wasn't sure how they were going to handle that, because he appeared with this other MCU hero cameo character, and they kind of left the door open for a classic certain story in the comics for a future season, and I'm really curious if they'll do that, and how that's gonna go. So we'll see. But yes, I thought this was a really great season, and definitely worth it for a lot of Spider-Man fans. And yeah, I think overall it had a great feel to it. It felt nostalgic, but at the same time, it goes into its own direction. It pays tribute to the MCU, not necessarily in the continuity of the MCU, but it pays tribute to it, but having Spider-Man go in his own path, which I thought was definitely worth the journey throughout the season. And I can't be more happy with this season. I mean, I do have like a few complaints, just a few little nitpicks here and there, like some of the pacing and some of the style with the animation isn't all perfect, but overall though it was a very solid series. And yes, if I had to give Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man season 1 a grade, I would definitely give it I'd say about an A-. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was really good, and definitely I can't wait for seasons 2 and 3. So yes, those are all my thoughts and my full season 1 review of the show. And one last thing before I end this off, I am going to be seeing Captain America Brave New World again with my buddy Sean today, and we'll probably do a review for him for his channel once we see it. So look forward to that as well over on Sean's channel, Cash Vault. So look forward to that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time. Peace.